intervention funds, as well as relief materials received and distributed by my ministry. Distinguished chairman and members, as you are aware, the Federal Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development was created in 2019 with a mandate to develop humanitarian policies and provide effective coordination of national and international humanitarian interventions at the advent of the COVID-19 pandemic, Mr. President directed the Nigerian Customs Services to release to the ministry food and related items seized for eventual distribution to the vulnerable citizens as a palliative measure. And below is a brief summary of our activities, while the details are captured in the report submitted. The non-monetary donations and distribution of disaster relief, the ministry received major food and non-food items, relief materials from the Nigerian Customs Service, as I mentioned, and others, and the distribution of the items, which was widespread, was given to the state governments according to Mr. President's directives. The incidences during the NSAS protests, however, made the ministry to consider dealing with NGOs in the subsequent distribution of these palliatives. Appendixes A and B in the main presentation before you give details of these allocations and their distribution during this period up to 31st March 2021. For the COVID-19 Intervention Fund allocation and utilization, the ministry was allocated the sum of 551,416,000 naira for COVID-19 interventions in the 2020 appropriation. This sum has been utilized for various interventions as captured in tables 2.1 and 2.2 on pages 4 and 5 of our presentation. In addition, the sum of 2,457,500,000 naira only was released to the ministry in respect of the COVID-19 rapid response. And this is part of the allocation of 32,457,000,000 allocated, for which the sum of 30 billion is yet to be released. This sum, as mentioned earlier, is meant for the payment of the sum of 5,000 naira each to 1 million vulnerable urban and peri-urban individuals for 6 months. And the summary of these releases is as per table 2.3 and 2.4 on page 5 of the main presentation. On the modified National Homegrown School Feeding Program, in an effort to ensure continued response during the COVID-19 pandemic, the ministry experimented with the modified school feeding programs, whereby food was tailored to be provided to households with children in benefiting schools. And this experiment was conducted in FCT, Lagos, and Ogun states. However, in view of some challenges, this has to be suspended pending review. And summary of household covered is captured on page 8 of the main presentation. In conclusion, Mr. Chairman and members, it is imperative to remind this honorable and distinguished committee that since COVID-19 activities are still ongoing, the ministry is consistently devising ways to ensure delivery of palliatives to the most vulnerable groups at all times. And I must also mention here that during that COVID intervention, Mr. President also directed that 70,000 metric tons of grains be given to the ministry by Ministry of Agriculture for onward distribution to the poor and vulnerable across the country. This was also distributed and handed over to the state governments for onward distribution. Mr. Chairman, we shall also appreciate any suggested input that will ensure our activities are hitch-free and successful. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Mr. Chairman, as I mentioned, we handed over grants as directed to the state governments. And when we handed over, we told them what this intervention is meant for and whom it is meant for. Unfortunately, the NSAS now came with some revelations. Some warehouses were vandalized, and we got to know that most of these warehouses were warehouses that the relief items that we took, or the food or the grains that we took to the states, were housed. We are also affected. The warehouses of NEMA were vandalized. The ones of the Northeast Development Commission, the ones for the ministry, also here in Abuja, were vandalized. As an intervention ministry, we should have stock of food in store for eventualities. But this is what position we found ourselves, and we've not received any report from the state governments on how they distributed these food items. But as I mentioned earlier in my report, this has made us to now have a rethink and re-strategize to see how we can engage other bodies, especially the NGOs, in the subsequent interventions that the ministry is carrying out. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.